What's good, YouTube? Welcome to Vaping with Thesis. I am Nas, and today we have got the Smok TFV16 ginormous ass sub-ohm tank. One of the best sub-ohm tanks Smok Tech's come out with since the TFV8, in my humble opinion. And with that said, fuck the small talk. Let's go and get up close and personal with the TFV16 by Smok. Smok Tech TFV16. I'm super excited about this tank. I've actually recorded this up close already and I accidentally deleted the footage, so we're gonna end up by doing this shit again, but I'm glad that we're doing it again because I've had some time, like a solid 48 hours with this tank, and I found a couple of downsides that I didn't see in the first run. So with that said, let's go and get down to the nitty gritty. Pop this out. I wish there was fucking little finger cutouts right here because it was a bitch to unbox the first time around. PS QR codes from Smok, that way you can tell the authenticity of it as well. Let's go and take this top off. Oh, she's unveiled. The largest sub-ohm tank I've ever had my hands on. Now, there's a little bit of a caveat to that. The glass itself actually makes it appear a lot bigger than it is. There was a couple of tanks back in the day that not a lot of people touched on. I think it was a Slider L by Sigeli. Another one was like an Eco Pet, the Sig Pet, some shit like that. They were pretty large tanks. They weren't as big as this one, and they sure as fuck did not put out as much cloudage as this one does. Packaging actually exactly what I would expect from Smok. Super cheap, super chintzy. Nothing really fits very tight. Little pack of silica gel just to keep everything nice and dry. Warranty card, and I want to shout out to Smok. As much shit as I talk, and as a lot of people talk about Smok, their warranty seems to be top notch as far as what I've heard. I've never had any problems with it. I've never had a problem sending shit back. As long as that stuff is true, I'm glad to hear it. Especially a company like Smok, where a lot of their products, let's just be honest, the quality control is not that great. This one has been damn near perfect, but I've had a lot of shitty experiences with their quality control. If I get 5 products from them, 1 out of those 5 is guaranteed to be broken from the manufacturer. So 20%, that's not that great. We're dealing with a company who puts out a lot of product. We do have a manual in here, and I do suggest if you are a beginner vapor, and I'm assuming that there's going to be a shit ton of these sold directly to beginner vapors, it's kind of a cheating tool to get clouds, because you can achieve the same clouds of flavor with an RDA or RTA, but a lot of people want to go the fastest route, and I understand it. So take a couple seconds, read through the manual, understand what resistance is, what Ohm's law is, especially with the 0.12 ohm coil. That's an extremely low coil. Right here, we've got this black tank condom, as I want to call it, that sits right there over the tank, and believe me, you will need it because this bubble tank protrudes a lot. It is nice that they include that inside of the box. Right here we do have O-rings, essentially all the O-rings that you'll need to replace over time, and they have a black matching set of O-rings instead of the red if you want to go with a different color. The one thing that I don't like is that they don't have a set of O-rings for the drip tip, which is the only ones that I've needed. That's like the most necessary O-rings you need, they don't include. That shit doesn't make sense to me. I've never actually had to replace any of these O-rings that are on any of the Smok Tech tanks. The TFV4, the TFV8, the TFV12, all that shit, never had to replace those O-rings, but the drip tip ones I have, and I don't get them in the box. Annoying as fuck. They have your streamline glass, as they want to call it. It's just a straight glass. You won't need this. I'm telling you right now, the moment you buy this, you should automatically purchase a separate bubble tank with it. You will go through liquid faster in this tank than in virtually any other platform, aside from maybe a dripper. Even then, you will need the 9 milliliter capacity. That is a necessity to use this tank. If you use this one like I did the first day, you'll be fucked. Like, I was going through liquid, I want to say maybe every 35 to 45 minutes. If I was using this tank alone, I would go through a full tank with the streamline. So use that bubble tank, you'll enjoy the shit later. Bam, right in the middle we got this double mesh, or this dual mesh. I did not use this one in particular, but I did use the dual mesh earlier in the day yesterday, the replacement one that I had purchased with it. This is stupid ridiculous. This dual coil, I can't even explain to you, 140 watts on a sub-ohm tank that was working well. That is some shit that I've never experienced. I don't know if I'm impressed or turned off by it. It's one or the other. The tank got super hot eventually, but while it wasn't hot and while it was usable, god damn, that flavor was just, it was on point. And it's rare for me to genuinely love a mesh coil in a sub-ohm tank. In a different application like a pod system, I love me a mesh coil. In a sub-ohm tank, generally speaking, I don't. The only one I really enjoyed was the Raptor by EH Pro. That mesh coil was great for my menthol. This one was excellent. It was phenomenal. The downside was the amount of power that I had to push through this coil to get a satisfactory vape seemed a bit excessive. 135, 140 watts is just insane. Battery killer, juice killer, but the clouds and the flavor was phenomenal. Put that in there. Let's go and move it to the side. Let's address this fucking elephant in the room. This right here, right now, in my hands, probably looks like a pretty standard size sub-ohm tank. I'm going to grab what is considered to be a very large sub-ohm tank. Get the fuck back here. I'm going to grab what is considered to be a very large sub-ohm tank. It's my personal daily vape, aside from my Raptor, is going to be the Freemax Fireluke Firelock Original Edition, all metal. This is a large tank, 5 to 6 milliliters. It holds very large coils. Let's go and compare it side by side. Look at the size difference. it doesn't seem that big right up until you hold it next to another tank. That is a ginormous difference. And again, this is a 25mm tank. This is not a small tank. This is a big tank. Compared to each other though, this one is dwarfed. It's a lot like Shaquille O'Neal next to The Rock. This is already big. You put that next to it, god damn, son. Okay, let's run down from the bottom to the top. Right here at the base, we got designed by Smok TFV16. This is not a safe hybrid mech mod tank. And the only reason why I mention that is because most people aren't going to put sub-ohm tanks on a mech mod. They're just not. I have in the past, kind of on a whim, but I don't do it on a regular basis with any intent. A lot of people out there, especially if you're a beginner, this is not something I recommend you do. When you have a 510 pin right here that sits almost flush with the rest of the 510, you cause the risk of shorting. And if you short, that's when your mech mod turns into a pipe bomb. So this is not hybrid safe. I wouldn't even say this is mech mod safe. End of sentence. Right here at the base, we've got 1 and then 2 airflow slots. It's almost not worth calling slots. I would just call them giant gaping holes. 14mm over an half an inch. 14mm by 3mm. God damn, son. There's almost zero restriction when you're taking the hit. And with the airflow being this large, it is nice that you can bring it on and down, completely shutter off, extremely smooth, almost excessively so. I love the quality feel of that shit. Come on up here, we got the 9mm tank sitting directly between the top portion and the base. Now this is a push to fill, which is a little bit different than slide to fill. This one does have a lock. Kudos to Smok Tech. They've had this technology for quite some time with the locking mechanism on here. It doesn't feel the world's greatest quality. It just doesn't. It's one of those things where once they blew it up in terms of scale, you can actually feel where they got a couple of things wrong, and I'll show you that in a moment. And then right here on the top cap, we've got this 810 style drip tip, but it is not an 810 drip tip, and it's a bitch and a half to get off. Yesterday when I was messing with it, I did start to notice that this bottom O-ring right here is frayed. And once that becomes frayed, especially with these black O-rings, you're going to notice you can't get it on straight. This is less than 48 hours old and I've already got this bottom O-ring to fray. I wasn't trying to, it just kind of happened. So for most of the day, I could not get this thing on straight. It was sitting all cockeyed and shit. For me, that's kind of poor judgment as a company. I wish they would just use a 810 drip tip or a 510 drip tip. For me, it just seems like the easiest thing to do for your customers. If you're going to add any proprietary part to a tank, make sure that they're readily available, especially at vape shops. And these, I don't think are going to be available at vape shops, at least not most of them. Bam! Pop this right back on top. Attached, we have the single coil mesh, and this thing is a beast. Around 120 watts, it says where it's the best. For me, I was getting better flavor at around 130, kind of sitting at the same place as the dual mesh coil. It's all preference, it's all subjective on what you're vaping. Strawberry orange limeade, and it's been delicious, especially around, like I was saying, 135 watts. I was getting notes with that liquid that I wouldn't normally taste in, say, 60 watts, 80 watts, 100 watts on any other given device. So again, yes, that's a little bit subjective, and that has to do with airflow and heat. I am really impressed with Smok. This is one of the best sub-ohm tanks I think I've ever used for this application. One of the things that makes me nervous about these style tanks though is who is going to be your demographic. The clouds, the flavor, that's always a phenomenal thing. At the same time, I hope people take this and use it responsibly. Do not vape this out in public at a mall where there's a lot of people. It doesn't matter where you're at. If there's a lot of people, you're not going to be one of blowing, 13, 14 foot clouds in public. It's not a good look for us as a community or industry. Now this is a little subjective, but this is a con for me. Popping open this slide to fill system is a bitch and a half right until you hit right there. So just getting this button to actually unlock the mechanism is kind of difficult. Opening it up, you can kind of feel it's wobbly. It's not a huge deal, but this being only 48 hours old and it's already this loose, that makes me nervous over time. Pop this hinge out and then it was permanently broken. There was no way for me to fix it. So keep that in mind. It is a moving part, especially with this locking mechanism, but it is nice to know that this is not going to open up in your pocket. So again, with Smok being Smok, they do have some good designs, and this one was done correctly and well, in my opinion. Like I was saying earlier, this is less of a juice fill hole. This is more of a cum dump. So we're at 100 watts. I'm going to go ahead and give it a couple of hits, let you know my thoughts and feelings on it. Now with this airflow, I want to mention, I can't believe I forgot about this. I want to mention that the turbulence when it's wide open. This is not the airflow setting I like to keep the tank. Wide open doesn't do anything for me with this one anyway. That's the sweet spot. 135 watts, 0.17 ohm coil, single mesh. The flavor on this is spectacular. I want to sit here and tell you, fuck Smok, this is a garbage product, put it back on the shelf. But in reality, it's not. Like, I haven't had a single dry hit. It soaks in immediately. One of the downsides with these size coils though, that's inherent to the product but not necessarily a quality issue, is simply heat. Once this tank is hot, I have to set it down and leave it alone. 15, 20 minutes, let it cool down. Anything less than its minimum wattage of like 100 watts, anything less than that, it begins to become less satisfactory and almost no point to have it. For me, I wish there was a tank that's this size in terms of milliliters, but I could run at 85 watts, 95 watts, 100 watts. My daily vape is a 100 watt sub-ohm tank. So for me, I'm used to having that around, but I wish there was less heat. The nice thing about this being 9 milliliters is when it is full, it takes quite some time and a lot of hits of chain vaping in order for it to reach that temperature where it's not vapable anymore. With that said, my Ninja Kitties, that's basically it for the up close section. Let's go and get it back to regular view, son. The final summation is this. The Smok TFV16 is a ginormous tank, right? What I don't understand is when people say it's an excessive amount of vapor. Not really. As long as you don't use it in a public place or somewhere where a shit ton of people are gonna fucking see you, you're gonna be, how would you say that? Observed by people who may think it is a controversial subject, which it's not. With that being said, as long as you use this tank responsibly, there's nothing wrong with it. The flavor is spectacular. As a matter of fact, I haven't been this impressed with Smok since probably the TFV8. Those tanks, to me, were quintessential vape tanks. They were my quintessential daily sub-ohm tanks at that time. I haven't used a good Smok tank in a long while. I've had every baby beast I ever made, every Cloud Beast King, all that bullshit. I wasn't a fan. The airflow was turbulent, the flavor was minimal at best. The baby beast coils to me are garbage. This, on the other hand, I fucking like. It's a 28mm sub-ohm tank. It is excessive. I tend to be excessive. It's a little bit gaudy. I tend to be a little bit gaudy. You know what I'm saying? So all of these things to me are not negatives as long as you use it appropriately and you use it responsibly. Don't fucking blow a 13-foot cloud out in public where people can see you. This is not a movie theater or a stealth vape by any means or any stretch of the imagination. I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys what I'm talking about. Woo! That is a fucking cloud. We are roughly 10 foot from the camera, maybe 12 foot from the camera. Bring it up to 140 watts. I'm gonna bring that airflow down just a bit so it's a little bit less turbulent and go ahead and take a puff. God damn, son. Now, anybody watching this that's just started vaping, at one point in this industry, cloud comps were a thing. They still are, but I'm talking like $3,000, $4,000 pots, where literally the objective was to see who can get the longest cloud, the longest, most dense cloud at any given competition. Most of the time it was at vape meets, a lot of times at ECC. With that said, that's not really what the industry is about anymore, especially because it's no longer in its infancy. But with that said, there's definitely nostalgia that's attached to a tank this size and getting clouds of that caliber. End of sentence. So for me, myself personally, I do like this tank. I don't know what to tell you. I know on one hand I'm really hard on Smok, but on the other hand, sometimes they fucking hit it out of the park. On Thesis's patented finger of compatibility scale, what would I give this tank? For its purpose. Clouds and flavor. It's a fucking 8.5 to a 9. The only reason why it's not going to be any higher than that is the airflow is extremely turbulent when it's open. It's not a smooth airflow. It makes me smile. I don't know what to tell you. I love the shit. It's great. A couple things I don't like. One of them is obvious. It's going to be the drip tip. I do not like the slide to fill. I do understand that there's a locking mechanism. I'm very well aware that it does work for the most part. I'm still just an old school. I like to screw it off and screw it on. Every time I go to close it, it gets stuck on itself. So I have to push down and then lock it like that. It is very difficult to get back into place. Not something I would even put as a con. That's just more of what your preference is. It does look extremely similar to all the other tanks that they put out. Of course, that could be seen as a con or a pro. It's definitely a Smok Tech product. You know what I'm saying? Like, as soon as you have it in your hands, you know exactly which company makes it. It is a juice killer. Not a downside, it's just a byproduct of 120 watts with that single mesh coil. So don't forget to hit me up on Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. Of course, patreon.com/ThesisHimself. That is the exclusive place where you get these stickers, all kinds of shit, t-shirts, all that kind of good stuff. Bitch, it's okay, smell the truckers. Now, with that being said, I want to tell y'all that I appreciate y'all for vaping with Thesis. It is your boy Thesis. I'm out.